We've all heard them. Those stories whispered around a campfire or shared in hushed tones during a sleepover. The ones that make the hair on your arms stand up and have you checking over your shoulder for the rest of the night. Urban legends. They're just stories, right? Fictional tales designed to give us a good scare and nothing more. But what if I told you that sometimes, just sometimes, the line between folklore and fact gets blurry? What if some of the most chilling legends you've ever heard didn't just spring from someone's imagination, but from something terrifyingly real? Today, we're going to dive headfirst into that murky water where myth and reality collide. I'll be sharing 6 of the creepiest urban legends that, against all odds, turned out to be true. These are the stories that started as playground rumors, local ghost tales, or cautionary fables, only to be unmasked, revealing a core of shocking and often tragic truth. The kind of truth that makes you question every shadow and every strange noise in the night. So, turn down the lights, get comfortable, and prepare yourself. We're about to explore the real-life roots of these modern myths. And as always, before we get into it, I'd like to ask you to gently tap that like button. It's a simple gesture, but it really helps these stories reach a wider audience. But be warned, after hearing these, you might not look at your own local legends the same way ever again. Our first story takes us down to Tasmania, Australia, to a quiet street in a suburb called West Hobart. For years, a particular house on this street had a reputation. It was known as the Madhouse. Neighbours would whisper stories about the people who lived there. It was said that anyone who moved into this house would slowly but surely lose their minds. They'd become paranoid, suffer from terrifying hallucinations, and eventually be driven completely insane, forced to flee the property. The explanation that everyone settled on was simple and chilling. The house was haunted. Malevolent spirits were said to torment the residents, poisoning their minds until they broke. It was a classic ghost story, the kind you'd hear in any town with an old, spooky-looking house. But the pattern was too consistent to ignore. Family after family would move in, healthy and happy, only to descend into madness. They reported seeing phantoms, hearing disembodied voices, and feeling an overwhelming sense of dread that never left them. The local legend grew stronger with each new victim, cementing the house's reputation as a place of pure evil. But the truth, when it was finally uncovered, was somehow even more bizarre and insidious than any ghost story. It wasn't a phantom haunting the house, it was the house itself that was poisoning them. Every town seems to have its own boogeyman, a monstrous figure used to scare kids into behaving. In Staten Island, New York, that boogeyman had a name: Cropsey. The legend was a terrifying patchwork of local fears. They said Cropsey was an escaped mental patient who lived in the tunnels beneath the abandoned Willowbrook State School, a place with its own dark and very real history of abuse. At night, he would supposedly emerge from the tunnels, armed with a bloody axe or a hook for a hand, and snatch children who wandered too far from home. For decades, the story of Cropsey was just that, a story. A way for parents to keep their kids out of the dangerous, derelict grounds of Willowbrook. But in the 1970s and 80s, the line between this campfire tale and grim reality began to dissolve. Children started to disappear. First, a young girl with Down syndrome vanished. Then another, and another. The community was gripped by a very real fear, and the whispers of Cropsey turned from a spooky story into a terrifying possibility. The police began to investigate, and their search led them right to the heart of the legend, the decrepit, abandoned grounds of Willowbrook. There, living in the filth and decay, they found a real-life monster, a man named Andre Rand. He was a former employee of the school, and the evidence against him was chillingly similar to the boogeyman tale parents had been telling for years. For nearly 3 decades, the small communities surrounding North Pond in central Maine were haunted by a phantom. It wasn't a ghost in the traditional sense, but a presence that was just as unsettling. People who owned cabins in the area would return after a winter away to find things amiss. A propane tank would be gone, a supply of frozen steaks missing from the freezer, a stack of books or a particular brand of potato chips vanished. There were never any signs of forced entry. The phantom was like a ghost, slipping in and out without a trace, taking just enough to survive, but never enough to seem like a standard burglary. Over the years, the phantom became a local legend. Some thought it was a hermit, a recluse living deep in the woods. Others joked it was a friendly ghost who just really liked bacon and reading Stephen King novels. Motion-activated cameras were set up, but they only ever captured a blurry, fleeting figure in the dead of night. The mystery deepened, spanning 27 years and over 1,000 burglaries. The locals called him the North Pond Hermit. He was a myth, a whisper in the woods, an enigma that seemed destined to remain unsolved. Until one night in April 2013, a game warden, acting on a tip, finally came face to face with the ghost of North Pond. In the northwest of England, specifically around Merseyside and Lancashire, an urban legend began to circulate in the late 1980s that was as bizarre as it was unnerving. The story was about a man they called Purple Aki. The name itself was strange, but the legend was stranger. He was said to be an incredibly large and muscular man who would approach young, athletic men and demand to feel their muscles. The stories varied, but the core elements were always the same. His immense size, his purple workout clothes, and his singular obsessive compulsion to touch and squeeze biceps. He became a boogeyman for teenage boys, a strange and intimidating figure to be avoided at all costs. The legend was so outlandish that many dismissed it as a ridiculous schoolyard rumor, a giant purple-clad man who just wanted to feel your muscles. It sounded like something out of a comic book. But Purple Aki was very, very real. His name is Akinwale Arobike. He was a bodybuilder, and the stories were not exaggerated. His behavior escalated over the years, moving from strange requests to outright intimidation and harassment. The urban legend took a dark turn when his actions were linked to a tragic death, leading to a highly unusual court order designed to stop his bizarre behavior. The story of Purple Aki is a sobering reminder that sometimes the most absurd-sounding legends are rooted in a very real and very troubled human story. Imagine you're hiking through a dense, ancient forest in Switzerland. The air is crisp, the only sounds are the birds and the crunch of leaves under your feet. Then, through the trees, you see it. A figure walking slowly along the same path. It's tall, dressed head to toe in a drab, military-style boiler suit and a heavy cloak. But the most terrifying feature is its face, or rather, the lack of one. Instead, there is a vintage, terrifying-looking gas mask. For over a decade, this was the sight that greeted hikers in the Moors forest. They called him Le Loyon, which translates to the madman. For years, Le Loyon was a local legend, a ghost story made real. People would share blurry photographs and terrifying first-hand accounts of their encounters. He never spoke, never threatened anyone. He would just walk the same path, day after day, a silent, unnerving sentinel of the woods. No one knew who he was or why he dressed this way. Was he disfigured? Was he a survivalist? Was he mentally ill? The mystery fascinated and terrified the local population. The legend grew so large that it attracted international attention, with tourists hoping to catch a glimpse of the ghost of Moors Forest. But this increased attention, as it turned out, would be the very thing that brought the legend of Le Loyon to a sudden and tragic end. In Fairfax County, Virginia, there's a concrete tunnel under a railway line known to everyone as the Bunnyman Bridge. For generations, teenagers have dared each other to visit this bridge at midnight on Halloween. The legend says that if you do, you'll be attacked by the ghost of a man in a bunny costume, wielding a hatchet. The story goes that he was an asylum patient who escaped, murdered his family, and then hung himself from the bridge. but his spirit remains, ready to attack anyone who trespasses. It's a classic, gory urban legend, perfect for scaring your friends in the dark. But like all the stories we've talked about today, this one has a kernel of truth. While there was no asylum escapee in a bunny suit, there was a bunny man. And he was real. Back in 1970, police reports detailed two separate bizarre incidents. In the first, a couple was confronted by a man in a white suit, screaming at them for trespassing before throwing a hatchet through their car window. Just 10 days later, a security guard found a man, again described as wearing a bunny suit, chopping away at a new porch post with an axe, telling him, "If you don't get out of here, I'm going to bust you in the head." The real bunny man was never caught, and his identity remains a mystery. Over the years, his real strange crimes morphed into the supernatural horror story that haunts that Virginia bridge to this day. And there you have it, 6 urban legends that crawled out of the realm of fiction and into our startling reality. It's a chilling thought that the stories we tell to scare each other might just have a real-life monster or a tragic event at their core. It certainly makes you think twice about the local ghost story you grew up with, doesn't it? Every town, every neighborhood has its own Bunny Man Bridge or madhouse. These tales are part of our shared culture, a modern folklore that warns us, thrills us, and sometimes reveals a hidden dark truth about the places we call home. Now, I want to hear from you. What are the urban legends from your hometown? Is there a local boogeyman, a haunted road, or a strange story that everyone knows but no one can quite prove? Head down to the comments section and share it with our community. I read as many as I can, and who knows, your local legend might just be the subject of a future video, especially if it has a terrifying, true story hiding behind it. I have so many more strange, dark, and mysterious stories to share with you all, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what's coming next. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If you found these stories as fascinating and unsettling as I did, please show your support by hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel for more content just like this. It truly means the world and helps us continue to bring these incredible true stories to light. Until next time, stay safe and be careful which legends you go looking for. You might just find them.